Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ask an Expert. And I'm really happy to be joined by Jenny Paxman, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the School of Artisan Food. And but I should say hello first, Jenny.
Hello, lovely to see you, Paul, and really glad to be here today.
I was going to say I've got a bit of the sort of really snappy website blurb, which I think actually is a good introduction, and I might say that and then give you a chance to sort of explore a bit more. But it says
Cool.
that the School of Artisan Food is an award-winning charity dedicated to enthusing and helping people from all walks of life to learn about healthy, sustainable, and delicious food. It sounds really appealing.
It's the best job in the world, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the school is set up predominantly to provide inclusive food learning opportunities that are transformative for people, for cultures, and for communities. And the idea behind that is that when we talk about food education in its traditional sense, it's very didactic in nature. It's about delivering knowledge or developing skills. Here at the School of Artisan Food, we're very much about learning through food. So the experiences that you have engaging with foods, either in their raw form, right from in the ground, right the way through to getting hands-on with dough, for example, or through the learning that we get by sharing food together and engaging around that food, whether it be in conversation or challenging ourselves by trying different types of foods, is so much more powerful than just learning about food or developing a specific food skill. So absolutely, we are looking to contribute to the building of a world where food education improves the quality of people's lives and where it fosters stronger communities and ultimately builds a more sustainable food system.
And so the school is based in the building that's behind you. Is that
It
right?
is, absolutely. Yeah, you can see behind me on my background here.
And
We're based in Lower Motor Yard, which is the old fire engine for a large estate, the Welbeck Estate in North Nottinghamshire. It's an absolutely beautiful Grade 2 listed building. And we have from within the building, the main occupier being the School of Arts and Food. We share the building with Welbeck Bakehouse, and we also have a new startup, Primrose Creamery, operating from within the building. So we really are a community of makers,
Mhm.
and we connect with our neighbours, Welbeck Abbey Brewery and Dropworks Distillery, and more, in the home of Stickleton cheese, which is undoubtedly the best unpasteurised blue cheese in the world.
Oh, wow.
So we're really fortunate to be able to connect with those individuals who are building businesses that share the same ethos as we do, which is all about ensuring that people are given every opportunity to connect with food, where we recognize the ingredient, we recognize the production process, and more importantly, we're just slowing everything down.
Mm.
So that really fast-paced modern world that we're all trying to navigate, particularly in terms of the foodscape, is slowed down, and we're given the opportunity to reconnect with where our ingredients come from, what that means for us and for our planet, and how we can learn by process.
So, in terms of the day-to-day kind of operations of the school, I guess, are there a variety of courses? There's sort of short courses and then longer qualifications that the school offers. Do you want to talk a bit more about the variety of these?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a food education charity, and so charity is at the heart of everything we do. We only do things where we can demonstrate social impact, so that's a priority for us.
Mhm.
But we tend to operate in three distinct pillars, but they are interconnected. So the one that most people will be familiar with is our experience pillar, which is where we offer short and professional development courses for enthusiasts, but also for people who've already developed a craft who want to learn specific skills. So that could be bakers or patissiers or butchers, for example. We offer courses that are from half a day in length through to 4 weeks in duration, and all of these are featured on our website. But we attract a range of different individuals, and we have a number of schemes that enable access to those courses if they're out of your price range.
Yeah.
We then have our engage pillar, which is the pillar in which we house our very successful Best Food Forward programme, working with secondary school children and with healthcare professionals. And we also have a range of different advocacy objectives that we aim to achieve through this pillar, one of which is to contribute to the transformation of food education across the UK.
Mm,
And within this pillar also, we connect with other third sector and charitable organisations supporting the delivery of food education in a range of settings. So for those of no fixed abode, for prison settings, for example, and also for our refugee populations. So we really try to deliver specifically on social impact within our Engage pillar.
And it sounds,
And then,
yeah.
sorry,
I was going to say it all sounds really, really interesting in that sense, but no, you keep going on. So,
So the third pillar, thank
yeah.
you so much, is our equip pillar. And this pillar is a combination of further and higher education. So these are formalized qualifications where you leave with certification to actually deliver in the realms of artisan food production. So we have our in-house high diploma in artisan baking and business skills. And we also have a partnership with our neighbouring university, Nottingham Trent University, and we have a foundation degree and BSc in artisan food production with them.
Wow, the breadth is incredible in terms of what you've just sort of explained there. I mean, I was going to say you've referenced a few times about that sense of accessibility and wanting to sort of engage communities that maybe wouldn't naturally kind of gravitate towards these things. I mean, you have talked a lot about that, but I wondered if there was anything else around that accessibility, like why maybe that's such a priority, but also then how you go about that.
I think one of the big misconceptions when we say artisan food,
Mm.
and I often open with, what do you think artisan is? So go on, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think artisan is?
Really fancy, expensive things.
Yeah, and absolutely what
Yeah.
everybody says,
Mm.
fancy, expensive stuff. Actually, not at all. And our role we see is about reconnecting people with the true meaning of the word artisan,
Mm.
which is absolutely about developing the skills, developing the craft to be able to produce things that are made by hand, that celebrate their origins, that come from the raw form and are taken into a new heightened form through the skill and the passion and the love and the care that's taken with them. And absolutely, they don't have to be expensive. So if we think about, just as an example, sourdough, 3 ingredients: flour, salt, water,
Mm.
none of which are expensive. The difference is the time. And it's not just about putting the time in, it's about knowing how to put the time in. So how you speed the dough up if you're in a rush, how you slow it down if you're not home till later. So
Mm.
there's lots of things we can do to make things accessible to individuals. And the concern for me is that we've lost sight of the fact that every single individual has the right, if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Mm.
to be able to access good quality food to nourish our bodies. And how we do that will vary from individual to individual. We recognise that coming to learn from some of the world's best experts, to learn a craft skill and to spend a day with us at the School of Artisan Food can be out of everyone's price range. Some people cannot afford that. However, we have set up a range of funded bursary schemes to enable people to join us on our courses. So just this year alone, we've had 3 funded places on Create Your Own Micro Bakery.
Mhm.
And this is very much about setting people up with a startup business, ready to do business. And we will prioritise local people, we'll prioritise people of reduced income. Equally, we offered 2 bursary places on our summer school this year to refugee scholars who are looking to set up their own businesses in artisan food production. And this year on our higher diploma, we have 4 funded places for a range of different individuals with different needs. And for me, as Chief Executive going forward, it is an incredible priority that we try wherever possible to widen participation and to enable access.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's it all sounds great, and I think what's really interesting as well is how that feeds into the narrative around sustainability, and that it's sort of countering the industrialization of a lot of the food processes and recentering community, and like using language like slow food, and that all kind of really feeds into the broadest sense of what sustainability is. Um, I think maybe is this a good moment as well then to go a bit deeper into the best food forward, and there is a report that was released recently called the Food Education Mapping Project, And
That's right.
I wondered if you wanted to talk a bit more about what that involved and kind of, yeah, the scope of that report.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to do so, and thank you for asking. So, in terms of our Best Food Forward project, this is an externally funded project to deliver food education for secondary school children and for healthcare professionals. It launched in 2022, and we are currently working this year with 16 new partnered schools, and we are delivering food education touch points with around 6,000 children
Hmm.
per year. Now, that will range from us going and doing assemblies or PSHE lessons in school, but we do have around 160 children that join us for drop-down days here at the School of Artisan Food, fully funded from within the South Yorkshire, Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire region. We try wherever possible to make sure that at least half of those children are eligible for pupil premium, and we provide all the transportation costs to enable schools to actually come and visit us.
Mm.
So you can imagine there's a bit of a waiting list to join our partnered school list. So one of the things that we recognise from working with schools so closely is that food education varies so wildly between different settings. And we often find that the best way to ensure we have the highest quality of food education is to have a senior leader who believes in food education as a power for good. Now, this was all anecdotal, and we felt that we probably ought to do the work and find out.
Mm.
So the Best Food Forward team commissioned an independent report into the state of secondary food education in England. And they, over a period of around 18 months, worked with 23 different partnered schools across England, representative of the whole of the country. So we had various sizes, we had different levels of eligibility for free school meals, different Ofsted ratings, and they spoke to the key stakeholders within each of those schools. So when I say the key stakeholders, obviously, most importantly, they spoke to the children, very, very important part of the project. They also spoke to PSHE teachers, food teachers and senior leadership teachers to enable us to understand what's happening around food education in England. And they came up with a number of key observations and then a core recommendation with 6 policy asks associated with this. So in terms of secondary food education today, they wanted to look at what was happening in the classroom where children learn food education. They wanted to look at what's happening school-wide where children see food education, and they wanted to see what was happening in terms of the school connecting children with real world experiences where children live food education.
Mm.
And so we broke down the findings into those 3 areas in the classroom, school-wide and within the real world context. So if you'd like, I can take you through some of the findings and what they mean.
Yeah, I think it's really when you were explaining this before, this creative way of there's a Venn diagram, isn't there, with the magic happens with the overlap between learning it, seeing it, and live it, and the way you've just described it there really brings that to life. So yeah, I mean, do you want to, rather than going through all 6 of them, is there 1 or 2 of them that you think these recommendations are really important and these are the things that should be prioritized?
Skills and it
Sorry,
meaningfully
Jenny, do you want
combines.
to start again? I think mine, it might have just been my video, but it paused for me a minute there. So sorry, do you want
Okay,
to explain?
no
Yeah.
problem, no problem at all. So in terms of what children see in the classroom, where children learn food education, we found that it was valued by staff and by children, and it supported the development of meaningful life skills. It also combined theory and practice, which children found engaging, but ultimately that space was being limited by curriculum time and by staffing and by resources. In terms of where children see food education across the school, it fosters culture and community when it's supported by really good quality food ethos. But we found that this provision of food and the provision of food learning opportunities outside the classroom rarely integrated with whole school food policy. And most importantly, the food learning from the classroom was being undermined by the food provision in the dining hall or at break, which was affecting child well-being. And then finally, within a real world context where children are living this, we found that when action based food learning happened, it was inspiring and supported children's wider learning. But this type of learning rarely aligned to the curriculum, and also it wasn't available to all children. So there was some inequity there. But like you said, for the schools that could learn it, see it, and live it, we had this magic spot in the middle. And we were saying that really that's where the magic happens for children. And so for us going forward, what we'd like to think is that in order to prioritise child attendance at school, engagement with all kinds of lessons and attainment across the curriculum, we would encourage all head teachers and CEOs of multi-academy trusts to prioritise food education and ensure that their schools are delivering the magic.
Wow. It's quite a big sort of challenging ask, isn't it? Particularly with I guess where we're at the moment and where we want to be. There's quite a big gap there, isn't there? And I don't know, there are lots of good examples and you know you yourselves are kind of good practice. But to really scale that up is a real challenge.
It is, but it's definitely not impossible. And when you look at some of the schools that are achieving this,
Mm,
and you'll see from within the report, there's a number of different beautifully scribed images that show how schools are achieving this. It's quite inspiring. And quite often it is just about teachers being given the headspace to
mm,
figure out how this can answer a wider curriculum need rather than be tied just to design technology or core food, which is often only as far as year 8, although it can be up to year 9, of course. But beyond year 9, you know, we're assuming these children don't have to navigate the food landscape. You know, this
mm.
is when they're developing those formative years. It's really important. I think the key thing for us is to work with a whole wide range of groups. We're currently involved in the Eat More Beans campaign, and also we've been involved in the sort of the heritage growing campaigns, and we do connect with Real Bread campaign as well. But we tried to work with a range of advocacy partners, and particularly we're really proud to be founding members of the Food Education Network, along with colleagues at School Food Matters and other colleagues who are delivering this message, Countryside Trust and others. So we do try to take a holistic view of what food education can be and to recognise that there's agriculture, horticulture, science, social science, economic policy elements to food education. But yeah, we're absolutely keen to work with a whole range of partners.
Why did you? I think it's worth sort of explaining a little bit more in that sense as well. Like why it's important for those sorts of groups to exist, and also what you are sort of trying to. I guess some of that's come through, but what you're trying to encourage and what you're trying to campaign for, in terms of maybe pushing government.
So I think for a long time, the purpose of food education in schools has been somewhat lost or a little bit muddled. For me, the alignment with food education solely with industrial production is limiting in terms of the scope for careers. It's not that we shouldn't learn about industrial processes, and in fact, we have to feed 10 billion people on this planet, and we do need some industrial processes to be able to do that. But there are a whole host of food careers that sit outside of that as well. And our food education in schools at the moment and the way it's structured don't really prepare young people for those careers. I think there is a risk that if we take food out of design technology, that there's a bit of a hi-ho silver lining type problem there, in that it's everywhere but it's nowhere.
Mm,
And that really does concern me. But the disparate nature of covering healthy eating and PSHE, carbohydrate structures in biology or chemistry, and then learning about how to design products in design technology, although there is some overlap and where it's taught well, it's absolutely brilliant. There is a real opportunity here for the government to treat food as the important subject that it is, which is part of an incredible curriculum wedge that enable children to thrive. And if you put together all of the elements of child well-being, food is a really important part of it, and it deserves the curriculum time, both at core level, but also from a professionalisation point of view, it should be represented from qualifications, both at key stage 4 and again at key stage 5 to enable careers in food to flourish.
So just to finish then, I think obviously we want to suggest to teachers that they go and visit the website of the School of Artisan Food and explore a bit more about your work. And I did see there's a YouTube channel with quite a bit of video content as well. Is that right?
There is some, yeah, that's absolutely right. And if you head to our Best Food Forward website, you'll be able to download the food education mapping report, which is
Yeah.
on there. If you haven't got time to read a report, which as a teacher, I'm sure most people don't have, there is a nice, concise executive summary, which talks a little bit about the child development journey that our adolescents go on and how food education can support it.
And I feel like you were hinting there as well about what if teachers are given the space, what they can achieve. I was thinking, is there sort of not so much a tip? I think that's too simple, but is there in terms of teachers on their journey, in terms of food education, is there a bit of sort of inspiration or something you would say that this is the thing you could focus on as part of that journey?
I mean, yeah, there's so many things I could say at this point,
Mm,
to be honest, but I feel you've got to, with any kind of teaching, be authentic. And it does become challenging for teachers to be authentic in something that they don't themselves see as transformational. We
mm,
don't all benefit from a high quality relationship with food, and particularly the types of foods that we're surrounded with all day, every day, which often push us to make decisions that we wouldn't otherwise make with regards to how we feed our bodies. I think to give people the opportunity to reconnect with food and where it comes from so that they themselves can feel transformed and pass that passion on to the next generation. It just doesn't have to be that we all consume what we see in front of us on a supermarket shelf. And I'm not for a second suggesting you can't feed a family on a budget loaf. You absolutely can. And if that's what you can afford, you absolutely should. However, there are other ways to do all of this or to do part of it. And I think the key thing is to remember that food has always formed an important part of our culture for every single culture around the world. And you can take bread as an example, but it doesn't have to be complicated and it does bring people together and it helps us to understand each other and the planet. And that's such an important message. So I guess my message to teachers is take time to reconnect with food yourself before you try to pass that on.
wow. Well, thank you so much. It's a really good piece of advice there.
You're welcome.